Good day, everyone. My name is Joshua Berglan, and I'm also known as the World's Mayor. Welcome to the World's Mayor Experience. I don't even know what episode this is. Technically it's episode 8, but somewhere along the lines, because I've recorded some other episodes that I haven't published yet, I've got the numbers all mixed up. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be a lot of fun. In fact, it is fun because I've already done the interview. In fact, I did the interview yesterday. Life has gotten so much busier that typically when I do all of this, I do the production, the recording, the intros, everything the same day. And that's just not a reality for me at this moment because things have gotten busier and I'm really excited. Launching donation-based media consulting. I got kind of made fun of, kind of yelled at, kind of told I was an idiot for doing this. And yet it's already turned out to be one of the greatest blessings of my life. And here's why. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble or any other video hosting site, or you're listening on any of the podcasts around the world, I really love the Asha podcast service. By the way, I don't work with them. I don't get paid for saying this, but I do want to tell you that it's the best podcast service I've ever worked with. I love it. It's just fantastic. I highly recommend it, especially if you're wanting to get your podcast into new markets. This is the way to go. Asha, A-U-S-H-A. I really like them, love their customer service. So I want to recommend them before I get into this. But thank you for watching. Our YouTube channel is growing. It's kind of awesome after being kicked off the platform twice to now be monetized on YouTube and have a better working relationship with them is nice. I do absolutely 100% believe in the power of self-hosting and independent media, but it would also be lying if I said that there's not a lot of value in being on YouTube, especially if you're on a budget, because you don't need money to be on YouTube. Anyway, that said, thank you again for being here. And today's guest, Brian Wright, is awesome. Brian is a good friend. And in this conversation, we talk a little bit about publishing, what it takes to write a good book. We talk about really, why people write books and sometimes of the ill-fated reasons people choose to write a book, or why people write a book and they think it's going to be one thing, but it's not. And also get into kind of the publishing game that's played, some of the deceptive practices. I call it deceptive practices for publishing a book, because there's a lot of programs that promise you being a bestseller. They promise you a lot of money. And then, the actual substance behind that is a little sketchy. And that's just a fact. How do I know that? Because I toured with speakers. I toured with speakers all over the country. I worked behind the scenes. I've produced their events. I kind of have seen what goes on. Not with every event. I'm not going to say this for everyone, but I will tell you that just because someone says you can earn $10,000 in a couple months using their service, or you can be a bestseller, it's not really what you think it is. And I want to be very clear, being an international best-selling author in 4 countries, it sounds sexy. Not gonna lie. When I hear it, I'm going, wow, look at me. This is amazing. And because that's me. I have my book, The Devil Inside Me. We hit #1 in 4 countries. Should be really excited about that. But the truth is, game the system, because I knew what to do. And as silly as it is, like, it doesn't mean anything to me, but I market that I'm a best-selling author because you know what? It opens doors. That's the reality of it. So you got to ask yourself, when you're writing a book, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? And we get into that with Brian today. The other thing that we talked about, actually, this reminded me of this, and I'm kind of grateful that I didn't record an opening yesterday, because I would have not talked about this. But Brian and I get into a conversation that reminds me of our journeys to success, our journeys to our hero's journey, our journey to be the greatest version of ourselves, to our journey to be what God created us to be. Of course, I know we have free will, but you know, like when we get these downloads and visions, I believe with all my heart that is the Creator showing us what's possible for our lives. And in my case, I've seen the evidence to that be true. I also know what the consequences are of running from that, because that's what I did. The whole Devil Inside Me book is my journey to finding myself, to finding God, getting aligned back with God, finding it's a wild story. It's all true, and it's very triggering, just being honest with you. And we actually discussed that too, about being a social media influencer, being somebody of influence, and how much do you share? How much do you talk about with yourself? We get into this subject with Brian too. But when I talked to Brian, I first met Brian when I first began my journey. In fact, we talked on the phone. I don't know if he remembers this, but we talked for a while, and I had just gotten out of being homeless. I had this dream of being a talk show host, and this is like right when I first started doing Facebook Live. That's kind of how I met Brian, and we got on the phone and talked, and you know, I actually thought I was going to be invited on the show. I wasn't yet. I still haven't been. It's been 7 years. I want to be on a show, but he hasn't invited me. But not trying to drop hints, Brian. Anyway, but at the same time, I can see why I haven't been, because his magazine and his radio show are about people who have established themselves, that have proven to be successful. I'm still on a journey. I've accomplished a lot. A bestseller in 4 countries, 8 film festival wins. Yeah, we did all that and did it with no money. I know how to do that. And that's one of the things that I teach people, because I know how to do it. But I mean, I also know how to put together good content. Maybe you may disagree with the way I broadcast, but whatever. Anyway, I'm pretty creative, and I have the awards to prove it. Anyway, and I've actually won an award for my talk show too. So anyway, when I was doing a conversation with Joshua T. Berglan, but I'm full world's mayor now, baby. I don't even let my wife call me Joshua. No, that's kidding. She calls me Joshua all the time. Anyway, making stuff up. Okay, back to what I was saying. It reminded me of the journey, because when I first met Brian, I remember where I was at. Just got done being homeless, didn't know anything, just started doing Facebook Live. It was before I figured out how you could multi-purpose Facebook Lives and turn it into podcasts and even TV shows and other things. And that was back when it was much easier to download videos on Facebook, by the way. And I got on Facebook for about a few weeks, and I'm still here. Why is this thing? Am I recording? Oh, I am recording. I apologize. I've changed recording software, and I'm using Google Meet now, and I like it. I like it better than Zoom. And I'm not saying that to kiss Google's butt either, but I kind of like Google's products. I went back to using Chrome because of the AI integration that's about to happen. Anyway, I'm getting off subject. So the journey, I'm going to focus. I should be focused. I just got back from the gym. Anyway, Brian reminded me of the journey, like where I was at then, and then what's happened since. Going from Facebook Live to becoming vice president of a streaming TV network that's very popular. Got to do that. Had my own network with our nonprofit. By the way, giving away network slots is not a good business strategy, but we were a nonprofit. Thought that was a good idea. Wanted to help people, wanted to serve. And it's like when people see free stuff, they just get skeptical. It's the weirdest thing. And yet at the same time, the very people I want to help typically don't have the money to do all that stuff. So maybe I was ill-advised in trying to give it away, but I don't know. That's kind of why I went to donation-based media consulting. It's not that I'm doing the work for you, but if you want my advice to how to do any of the things that I'm able to do, and that's a long list, it's on theworldsmayor.com. But if I can just guide you to do it, like, I mean, yeah, I know there's value there, but I don't want to like say, well, you need to send me $5,000 now because I just changed your life, or because I just gave you a strategy that is going to change your business forever. I don't believe in doing that. If you see value, then yeah, pay me. But if you want me to do the work for you, that's a different conversation. Then, you know, I'm not working for free, but I am also here to be able to advise. And if you can donate on that, then great. If you can't, okay. But I'm here to serve, and my heart is sincere about that. But I also know my value. So I'm going to clear that up. But this journey has been wild. It's been full of failure. It's been gone from, again, starting with Facebook Live. That Facebook Live, believe it or not, is what taught me how to make a movie with no money. Learned all of these things along the way. So in this journey, gosh, it's taken a long time to say this, but in this journey, and looking back, it reminded me of how far I've come. And even looking at Brian, how far he's come since that journey started 7 years ago. His journey was way before. He's been very successful for a while. Brian is one of the nicest, kindest, best people I know, one of the most trustworthy people I know. And I don't know anyone that says anything bad about him. And in that world of book publishers and speakers and authors, there's a lot of a-holes. And there's a lot of shady people. And Brian Wright is one of the best people I've ever seen or met. He's great at what he does. And he's great with people. And he actually cares about people. And that, to me, is one of many reasons why I would want to work with him and why I recommend working with him. So I'm reading a book called Atomic Habits. And I just started reading it. And it reminded me of my conversation with Brian. And that's what all this lead up has been to. And I also want to thank everyone watching directly on the website, theworldsmayor.com, as opposed to one of the other platforms, but I'm grateful wherever you watch and listen. But from the book Atomic Habits, I took these notes from, this is like the very first chapter, but it is profound because it reminds me of something that I heard Craig Groeschel from Life Church say. He said, if you want to see God work miracles in your life, do something each day to stretch your faith. Stretch your faith. What does that take? And to stretch your faith, it's really ultimately, you took one step forward. You know, sometimes we take one step forward and two steps back. I forgot that song. Never mind. I was going to sing and then never mind. Anyway, as long as you can get one step, like you're positive one step each day, like you can see God work miracles in your life because you're stretching your faith. Anyway, bad example maybe, but here's what came from the book. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better once you are done. I don't know how that math works out, but that is what's in the book. What starts with a small win turns into something more. Don't dismiss small changes. These are just my notes. I'm not in order of the book. Now, of course, this can work with bad habits as well. You know, taking a step back each day, and you look back, you've got negative steps for a week straight, a month straight. Think about that hole. Think about a financial hole. Think about debt. Same thing, but like compounding interest, right? So I think that's a good thing. But 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better. So what can you do each day to ensure that you are 1% better? that day. And this last thing I wrote, success is the product of daily habits, not a once in a lifetime transformation. That reminds me of, well, and I'm not trying to bring church into this or religion, but I kind of, this is the story that came to mind. So here we are. I can't tell you how many times that I prayed the salvation prayer. Like, okay, God, change me, fix me, I'm saved. And, got that spiritual high for a week or two, but then it went away. You know why it went away? Because I wasn't doing the work. Because I thought, okay, Jesus, save me. And then it was like magically going to get better. It's going to magically no longer be an addict and, I'm a crazy person. It doesn't work that way. My life didn't change until I was committed to the work, the journey, definitely the journey, and committed to the relationship. And while my faith and my beliefs have changed a lot, they're still very much the same. If there was a word for this, I would call myself a Gospel of Thomas follower of Christ. And if you don't know about the Gospel of Thomas, well, it's just the direct sayings of Jesus. Now, some people argue this, but it's a very Gnostic book. It's a very different book. And, even though the Bible refers to a lot of what the Gospel of Thomas is saying, there's a lot of other verbiage that I think distracts people from understanding that it's saying basically the same things. But yet the Gospel of Thomas is not allowed in the Bible. And do you know why it's not allowed in the Bible? Sure. If you have an answer, and it's probably an opinion. Just being honest with you, it's probably an opinion, because I don't think any of us know for a fact, but we could assume that the Gospel of Thomas is the most empowering self-mastery, personal self-relationship book of any religious text, especially that's in the Bible, because it focuses on you and the God within, Christ within, and that, we're not God, but we're part of God. And that doesn't make us God, but it makes us more of a God than we actually treat ourselves to be or show others the respect of. I think I said that right. Basically, if I have God in me and you have God in you, then why do I treat you like shit? Why do I disrespect you? Why do I judge you? Why do I make fun of you or criticize you or laugh at your goofy looking hairdo or whatever? Like, I'm not saying I do that. I'm just making up examples, because I've had plenty of bad haircuts and I'm bald. So like I have hair, but I have a bald spot, a really big bald spot that keeps me from growing out my hair, because I'm very insecure about that bald spot, because it looks like a bird nest got slaughtered in the back of my head when I have long hair. So that's why I shave my head. Success is the product of daily habits, not a once in a lifetime transformation. It's work, it's a journey, it's self-mastery, it's self-control, it's killing your ego, it's becoming who you were created to be. That is the most important thing on the planet. Why? Because who you were created to be, that person has a purpose, that person has gifting, that person has talent, and all of that is meant to be a blessing to other people. The lessons that we learn, our intellectual property, are to be used to teach others, to pay it forward, to help the next generation, to help other people who are struggling from the same place that you once were. That is what all of that is for. We are here for each other. We are here to serve and love each other. We are here to live purposefully, but our purpose isn't about us individually. It is about other people. But for us to master ourselves, we have to die to self. We have to surrender our free will for our Creator's will, because after all, our Creator created us for a specific purpose. So I get very excited when I meet people who are living in their purpose. I get even more excited for people who are looking to step into their purpose. And if you are one of those people and you need help, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here to serve. No questions asked. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to this monologue. And again, you're in for a treat. Brian is a truly special guy. This is a great conversation. So much love for Brian and all that he does. Thank you for being you. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, wherever you're watching from. Tell a friend. We have a big mission. Our goal with the World's Mayor Experience, other than the tour and certain communities and things like that around the world, we want to help 500 million people in all of the ways that we are able to help. And it's a lot. So thank you for being here. Bless you. See you soon. Bye-bye. Welcome back to the World's Mayor Experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored to introduce my friend and someone I have not had the privilege of getting to interview in several years, in fact, but does not change my love for the man and just the absolute brilliant, one of the most passionate, enthusiastic guys I know about his work, about his purpose, about what he gets to do. He has this amazing magazine called Success Profiles where it's a magazine you have to check out. Mm-hmm. Every single person I know that's been on the cover and who's been graced in those pages is someone that all of us can learn from. Mm-hmm. But that said, I personally believe we can learn a lot more from the man that produces that magazine, Mr. Brian Wright. Brian, so blessed to have you here, my man. Yeah. Great to have you again. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And by the way, I have rebranded the magazine in the last year. It's now called Ultimate Achievers Magazine.
So Ultimate Achievers.
Yes, it's a better name. The radio show is still the same, Success Profiles Radio. That's 11 and a half years old. I wanted to keep that brand, but Ultimate Achievers Magazine is now the publication. And I just recently released this month's issue. Shea Hillenbrand is on the cover, and he played Major League Baseball. He's a two-time All-Star, and now he speaks, and he has a foundation called Against All Odds, and it's teaching kids leadership through baseball. It's really cool.
I like that. That's very cool. So the name change, when you envision that, like, what were you thinking? Like, what is an ultimate achiever?
I think someone who fully embraces who they are and what their mission in the world is, and then they've gone out and actually done it and are still doing it.
And that's tough because it's easy to talk about. It's easy to talk about the visions and the dreams and all that, which are important, but you know, it doesn't really mean the same until you got there, because you know, you're just like, it's like being a carnival barker. You know, and I understand that from my own journey. It's tough. Like, you may have an expertise and you may be really gifted in something, but until you've actually accomplished the things that you talk about, people aren't just going to listen to you. And that's a fact of life. And it can be maddening for those that are on their journey, because you're like, why aren't you listening to me? I know what I'm talking about. Well, go do it for yourself first and then talk about it. So,
yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because one of my book writing clients that I'm writing a book for, I wrote a chapter about gratitude today for his book. And the idea that when you are grateful for where you are, then you'll get more. And his book is about growing and scaling a business as quickly as possible. And one of the things that I talked about in his chapter is when you start reaching new levels, you start reaching a new set of problems. And the problems you're currently experiencing are preparing you for the challenges that you'll get to face later. I said get to, not have to. Get to face later, because that means the bigger the challenges you're facing, the bigger the impact that you are going to have.
One of the greatest lessons that I learned and applied to my life in my journey was hearing that all of the giants, obstacles, the boulders that come in our way, we were created to overcome them. We were created to defeat them. Now, do we do it on our own? Do we do it with God? I personally believe it's about being aligned with God and his creation and our purpose. But ultimately, we were created to overcome those things so that we can teach the next generation the lessons that we learned. And when I heard that, it was Graham Cook that said it, as a matter of fact, and I heard it 5 years ago. But it stuck with me because every obstacle that came my way that felt impossible, I had established this belief that I was destined to overcome it. It may take a little bit, but I was destined. For you, what's been your personal philosophy? Because again, you get to hear a lot of other people's philosophies doing what you do. But for yourself and your own goals, what is the go-to for you that you tell yourself when crap's hitting the fan and it looks like you're stuck?
The pendulum swings both ways. This season will not last forever. If I'm in a bad spot, this season will not last forever. But the pendulum swings both ways. You can't get too low and you can't get too high.
I'm learning that, actually. I'm in the middle of my second month of self-mastery and learning from a coach, and it's been amazing for me. But one of the biggest takeaways that I've had or noticed, actually, is that I can get really excited about something and it can do just as much damage as getting really, really, really upset. It's wild to think that that's the case, but there's something about that. I don't know if that's for everyone, but for me, I'm trying to stay in this sweet spot of not getting too high. But again, and most people, if they know me, they know that I'm a very passionate guy, especially about what I get to do. But that passion has caused me a lot more problems than I can say has done good. For you, of all the people that you've had the opportunity to interview and learn from, what's probably the most profound thing that you've been able to learn that actually surprised you?
Hmm. That's a really great question. I think honestly, everyone puts their pants on the same way. Just because someone's achieved greatness doesn't mean that they're any more special than I am. It just means that they figured something out before I did. And that's all.
What a simple answer.
Yeah. They figured it out before I did. That's really it.
So you've been involved in media for a long time. You are very well established, have an amazing reputation,
Thank you.
which is really hard to maintain. In fact, I would say since we first met, I think maybe 7 years ago, gosh, wow, time flies. I've noticed a lot of people that I followed their journey that they go through a lot of extreme up and downs. There's problems, there's reinventing themselves, there's changing, there's disruption, whether it's self-inflicted or not. And yet with you, you've maintained this level of consistency across the board, your messaging, your branding. Yes, you've grown, but you're consistent. How in the world have you been able to stay consistent for this long? Because I'm dedicated and I'm determined, but I'm not consistent in my approaches. I'm changing, I'm floating with the wind sometimes. You've been very slow and steady. How is that?
You know, that's really interesting because I mean, I've had opportunities to get derailed. In 2014, I had a life-threatening illness. I had H1N1 swine flu virus and pneumonia. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And I was told toward the end of my hospital stay that I almost died. In fact, there were some of the medical staff, 2 of them actually told me to my face, we almost put you on a ventilator. And we decided to give you one more day to see if you might start improving a little bit. And I did. So I'm very happy and grateful. So that took me out of the game for about 3 months, but I went right back to it because it's so interesting. I interviewed Hal Elrod a couple times, The Miracle Morning. In fact, the first time I interviewed him was before The Miracle Morning was written. So I got to talk with him pretty early on, which was really awesome. But he talked about surviving a life-threatening experience when he was hit head on by a driver. And he just started asking himself, instead of thinking about what could go wrong and people telling him he's not going to ever walk again, his question instead was, how am I going to impact the world when I leave here? So that's the question I just started asking myself. I had 2 weeks in a hospital bed where I had nothing to do except think and watch pre-Super Bowl coverage because I was in the hospital during Super Bowl week. The year that the Seahawks destroyed the Broncos. It was a horrible game. Thank goodness for Bruno Mars saving the day with a halftime performance that was unbelievable. The game itself was horrible, but I sat in that hospital room and I started dwelling on the lessons. Number 1, be aggressively thankful for everything. Number 2, take nothing for granted. Number 3, treasure your friends and family because you never know when any of that will be taken away from you. And I started thinking about how I wanted to impact the world. The magazine wasn't the thing yet. I started that 2 years later. But I wanted to continue my show. I wanted to speak on stages. I wanted to do some coaching. Eventually, I did my magazine. Even bigger things are coming up in the future that I can't discuss yet, but it's going to be a huge expansion of my brand going forward. And it's just about focusing on what's next and doing it consistently and never, ever, ever giving up. Now, I will say, when you see people's journeys on social media, they share the ups and the downs, and that's all great. But one thing you'll notice about the most successful people is they don't usually share the muck while they're still in it. I share that stuff once it's resolved, and then I share the lessons that I learned. So that's how I keep it real. And I have a small circle of people that I share that stuff with while I'm going through it. Coaches, best friends, that kind of thing. But I keep that circle really small. I don't spray it all over the place. I keep my circle really small, but when I do share things like that on social media, it's usually after there's a resolution to the issue. And then I share, this is what I learned.
Yeah, that is that's a valuable lesson. And I don't regret any of what I shared. Of course, I put it in a book and a movie, but I don't regret any of it. But at the same time, there comes a point where it's like, I mean, I've moved past it now. I've healed from it. Now I'm teaching and I'm getting to work with people that were just like me. I don't really need to talk about this and like broadcast. I don't need to wear it on my t-shirt anymore. But
Right.
that was a rough transition. And here's, I just shared with you before we started, I got back on Facebook after 2 years of being away. It was just not good for my mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in the frame of mind to be able to be on social media in a healthy way. And at the same time, not want to say the things that I wanted to say and what was going through my head, which did it do any good? Like, waking people up, being a truther, what good did it really do? None. But I took 2 years off and I came back on, and I realized after kind of like looking at what people share and what people talk about, like, how do I want to go about this? I'm not an inspirational quote kind of guy. Don't want to do that. I don't want to be a shock jock in that sense anymore.
No.
But you know what? There's really nothing, I don't need to be on here posting sports scores. So what's the purpose of me being there? Not much. And to your point, as I've gotten older and mature and have kids and a family, it's like, okay, well, you know what? I got all that crap out. It's in a book. Now I can move forward. But at least if anyone ever tried to call me on my old stuff, I've already confessed it. So you can't hang it over my head. But that's a real challenge. So let me ask you this. We are a world desperate, I believe, for authenticity, genuineness, and truth. Yet very little of us really know any absolute truths or enough absolute truths to be able to post them every day on social media, write about it, and talk about it. If you're young and you're coming in and you being the expert in media, multimedia that you are, you have a young person that's stepping into this. They want to make a brand. They're building their media company, because we're all going to be media companies in the future, or you won't have a job. What advice would you give to a youngster that's stepping into social media for the first time and they're trying to establish their brand? How can they be authentic and truthful without being what's the word? Just like either vomiting everything online or trying to be showy? Like, what advice would you give?
Well, I've never been a showy kind of person. I would just start by talking about who you are and what have you learned? What have you gone through? And what have you successfully navigated? Because that stuff is inspiring, and you'll attract your crowd by who you are. It doesn't mean projectile vomiting all the stuff that you've been through or are going through. But if you're posting to make a point, you can use a story about what you've gone through to illustrate that. So that way your post isn't about all the stuff you've gone through. It's about making your point, and this is why I can tell you this.
I like that. That's good advice. We are coming into a very interesting time in the world where technology is rapidly progressing. In fact, it's progressing faster than most people actually can comprehend or see yet. But it's there. Like even AI, the generation of AI that we are existing in hasn't even been revealed to the public. So we're kind of blind to this. What is your take on this AI generation that's coming up, where essentially, whether it's literal or figuratively, we're going to be merging with machine? What is your take on that subject about the use of AI, partnering with AI, relying on AI, or basically becoming part of AI? What's your take on all that?
That's a slippery slope, because I think no matter how you decide to use AI, you still have to develop your skills. You still have to be able to communicate. You still have to be able to speak eloquently. You still need to be able to write. And even if you use AI to write something, you still have to edit that and make it who you are, because if all of us are just relying on AI exclusively, no one knows whether that's actually you or not. And then authenticity dies.
You're 100% right about that. And there is a learning curve with it. I mean, I remember when I first started playing with it.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I sound like a philosopher. I'm like, but I don't
AI,
talk like that. If anyone ever hears me talk, they'll go, that guy doesn't talk that way.
Yeah. And you have to be real careful with it, because I don't think AI understands sarcasm yet.
Mine's learning, which is terrifying me.
Oh,
It is starting, mine is starting to tell me what I need before I ask for it. That is, and I have this dilemma like every once in a while where I'm going, do I really want to be using this? Because it's,
yeah.
I mean, when it literally predicted my next question.
Yeah. As
My
long as you're
answer.
as long as you're using it as a tool and not as the end all be all, because no matter what the technology is, whether it's AI or something else, if you're using it as a force for good, it's great. If you're using it as a force for evil, it's terrible. It depends on who's using it and how it's being used.
You're 100% right about that. Yeah, I mainly only use it for SEO at this point, and it's good for spell check too. But other than that, I want to use my brain as much as possible, because some of the forums that I'm a part of and I read, I'm hearing people just talking about how dumb they're getting. And for me, I've actually learned a lot from it. I've learned more from it than not, and I enjoy the convenience. But in fairness, it's a little frustrating how fast and efficiently I can work, because now I just keep creating more work for myself. Like before AI, I had my task, I would do it, and then I was done. Using AI, I'm like, oh, well, now I'm doing the job of 6 people and that would normally take a month. I'm doing in an hour. Like, oh boy. So just creative. So yeah, it's a very interesting time that we're in. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the changes. I'm excited because I built my independent media platform years ago, and like I'm prepared for these changes that are coming. But I want to ask you, because of AI, and you're used to working with creatives and entrepreneurs and so forth, how different do you think creatives, art, and so forth, like how much do you think it will change as far as what is considered an artist or not? Or is it just a dying, for lack of better words, art?
I think it lowers the barrier to entry, which means you don't actually have to be good at something to use it. I mean, you take a look at people who AI Photoshop their own photos. Even in music, that can be interesting. Now, the Beatles are supposed to be releasing their final song later this year. And Paul McCartney has said, all we did was we separated from one of John Lennon's cassettes that he left behind back in the late 70s. All we did was separate the guitar from the voice. That's all we used AI for. The Beatles were never about artificial doing anything. They were always using what was around them to add to what they were doing. And they're using guitar licks that George Harrison left behind, and then Paul and Ringo are adding new. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's interesting when George Harrison's got this whole catalog of work, and you can just pick stuff out that he's already done and figure out how to integrate it into what you're doing now. That's interesting. But it can be used to enhance creativity, and it can also be used as an excuse not to think anymore. And that's where I think the dumbing down of our generation is coming from. And it's not pretty, because when you are dumbed down and don't think for yourself, you are easily controlled. And I'm not about that either.
No, I 100%. Wow, I agree with that. Now you're on the publishing side of things also, correct?
Right. I help people publish their books on Amazon, get their book covers done, get the book laid out, and I will help people write their book or coach them through writing it themselves if that's what they want. I've even had people say, I have a completed book. Will you edit and publish it for me? And that's a different price point. And I've taken some of those. So it allows me to help people in other ways.
I want to ask you something, because we know a lot of the same people, and we definitely know the speaking world well, for various reasons, but we know that world well. And one of the parlor tricks, as I like to call them, because I'm not in favor of most motivational speakers that are out there, just because of some of getting to work and tour with some and seeing behind the scenes, it was really an eye-opening experience. But
you see who they really are in private.
Yeah. But what I want to ask you about, as a publisher, because I know you to be a man of integrity. Like, I know that about you. I know that you are sincere and genuine when you talk about friends and that being something you value. I know that because you just will randomly reach out to me to check on me. Like, that says a lot to me about that. And
Very
even
few
when I was
people,
on Facebook,
very few people do that, and I make that a priority.
yeah, and it's something that I admire about you a ton. And even though we have different football teams, I still admire that about you.
It's okay.
But what I was going to ask you is, how do you feel about this copy and paste approach to bestseller? And I think I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to make it really, really, really obvious what I'm saying, but I think you know what I mean, where it's like, this is your ticket to bestseller, just follow these steps, and then we're going to put you in this system, and then you're going to be a bestseller, and maybe in multiple countries. And that format is sold from stage for people, like how you publish your book, how you become a bestseller, how you make $10,000 in 3 months, or whatever it may be. How do you feel about that copy and paste approach to publishing to get people a bestseller?
That's a tricky question. Well, first of all, the person selling the program had better have done it more than once. One thing that bugs me on social media is someone does something once and now they think they're a coach, or now they think I can create a program on this. No, sit down. You've done this once. Prove that you can do this consistently. Now, you'll fool some people some of the time, but I think it loses authenticity too. Now, I understand that there are ways to game the system. It's crazy. But I think though that if you do want to reach bestseller, you just have to get a bunch of people to buy the book on the same day. Yeah, that's really what it is. And that's always been the truth. Whether you're talking about Amazon, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller list, you're trying to move a bunch of copies all at one time because that's how they know. But the real trick of, are you really a best-selling author is how long can you sustain that? Is your book a bestseller for weeks at a time, or were you a bestseller for 1 hour and then you're gone? I mean, and on Amazon, that's a lot of bestsellers. They're number one for an hour in a category. Now, some of my books have been number one in a category for, 10, 14 days. And that just means that people are still buying the book. And here's the other thing. I keep promoting my book, not just on launch day. In fact, I had a client reach out to me the day after launch day and said, do I have to post about my book again? Yes. This is your baby. You don't stop feeding it just because it's day 2 in their life. You will feed this baby forever. So treat it as such.
That's good. I gamed the system because I knew what to do, and I wanted to see if I could do it. But I did maintain bestseller for a week. I did that, and that was I felt good about it. But I don't feel good about being a #1 bestseller in 4 countries. It doesn't do anything for me, but it does accept open doors. Yeah. And like every door it opens, I'm going, if you only knew. If you only knew. I want to sell 1 million copies, but I haven't done that yet. I want to ask you this, though. As an author, and you go into writing a book, or you're thinking of writing a book, thinking about Colin Bryan. I see the work he does, the people he's working with. Like, I want to work with Brian. So, but and I'm coming into this, I'm calling you. What is the right mindset for me to have as a potential author wanting to write a book and wanting to work with someone like you? What is the right mindset going into it that when you hear it, you go, this guy's going to do it, or this woman's going to do it?
First thing I ask is, why do you want to write a book? What are you going to use it for? What's the end game? And sometimes people say, oh, I just want to share my story. Okay. You and your family will buy it. Your friends and family will buy it. But what about the 8 billion people in the world who don't know who you are? Then what? So I work with entrepreneurs who want to use their book to leverage their brand. That's my niche. Now, I'm not opposed to writing, you know, for other people. In fact, I wrote a memoir for an Olympian, and that was a great book. So I've done that. But the idea is, do you really want to go through your chronological life? I mean, what should I expect from it? Now, if you are, you know, an Elon Musk, or if you are a well-known musician or politician or business person, I know what I'm probably going to get if I'm reading Elon Musk's autobiography. I have a pretty good idea what I'm getting when I read Elton John's autobiography. But if I'm reading Joshua Berglan's autobiography, why do I, not that you shouldn't, but I'm asking why do you want to write that book?
Yeah.
And what do you want other people to get from that book? How do you plan on using this book going forward? Because I work with entrepreneurs, I tell them, if they tell me I want to sell a lot of copies, you may or may not, and I'm very honest about that, you may or may not, the average book will sell about 250 copies in its lifetime. Is that worth the amount of money that you're going to pay me to help you? That's up to you. But it's what you do after the book is done. Are you leveraging this to get on stages? Are you going to sell a coaching program? Are you inviting people to come to your free event? Are you inviting people to a high-level retreat? Are you wanting people to hire you to do something else because of your book? So you can spin your book into a lot of different ways. In fact, I was in a mastermind once, and one of the other participants in the mastermind said she had a business teaching people how to quilt. She, at the time, was making $250,000 a year from quilting. Quilting. If you think that you can't make money with your area of expertise, I invite you to think about that again. I was in a mastermind, another mastermind, and somebody had said that she makes a 6-figure a year with her dog sledding business in Alaska. Who knew? You can make money doing anything.
It's true. And if you know media, it definitely helps.
There is actually a book out there, and you can look this up on Amazon. I don't remember what it's called, but there is a book out there about how you can win playing rock, paper, scissors. And there's actually a world championship, a rock, paper, scissors world championship in Toronto every year. It's crazy what you can make money doing. But if you have a book that shows people how to do something, that's a great category.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah. Even further, let's just say that you're a real estate agent and you're either on the buying side or the selling side. If you want to write a book, not about your autobiography or not about your story, but how to do something, think about this. If you are in the real estate game and you want to get more clients, and you know there's X number of agents in your market, you can stand out by being the one that has the book about things that you need to know before you buy your house. Things you need to know before you sell your house. And the way you generate that book, and here's some free game here, write down a list of all the things that people normally ask you, because they're buying or selling a house likely for the first time, or they maybe only do it once a decade. You do this all the time. So this stuff you take for granted. So write down a list of all the questions you're answering over and over and over again. Oh, just buy my book. I'm tired of talking to you. Just buy my book. And then the answers to those questions can become chapters to your book. How cool is that?
That's actually genius, and my pen doesn't work, but I'll remember it because that's really good advice. I'm getting ready to start writing.
So you can hear it back again. You're recording this.
That's true. And I have the transcript.
Yes.
So, yeah. I'm getting ready to start writing again, and I'm excited because I do have one of those. It's not about me really. It's different. But it's about. Well, it is. There is a bit of it. There's a story in it about being misdiagnosed and being prescribed, like with schizophrenia, and like the circle and evolution of diagnoses that I've had through the years. And then the last diagnosis I had was dissociative identity disorder. And I don't know if you know anything about that, but essentially it's multiple personality disorder.
Oh.
Well, come to find out, and I've had that diagnosis for years. Well, now, after being around a bunch of specialists who specialize in that and having some conversations and doing all of this work on myself, they think that I'm actually going to meet with a neuropsychologist next month to get tested for ASD. And I don't know if that's it or not. but like I have been keeping notes for years about what doctors are telling me about my diagnosis and the information that I'm getting, sometimes I want to call disinformation I'm getting, the medications, the list of medications, the list of experiments, the list of all this stuff that my doctors have told me about.
Mm.
And I had to take, and really the lesson that I'm going to go for is about taking healthcare in your own hands
Yeah.
and educating yourself and being an advocate for yourself, because man, I've done a lot of damage, not just to other
Mhm.
people, but myself. And I'm looking back at it going, I could have gotten help or treatment or
Mhm.
whatever it may have been years ago and alleviated so much of this struggle and pain. And then I'm wondering to myself, I worked in healthcare for 18 years. I know the game. I know insurance companies. I know how to win appeals. I know
Mhm.
how to take on Medicare and Medicaid and Blue Cross and win. I did it for 18 years. I'm an expert in that field, even though I don't work in it anymore. I
Mhm.
still know what to do. And I still dealt with that.
Yeah.
Like I still, what happens to other people? What happens to a loved one when they've had a stroke or they've had a car accident and they now have they're having skin breakdown in their bed? Like, what do they do? And like the patient's rights and the things that people don't know that are the resources that are available to them. But the hospital doesn't tell them, they just send them away. And these people, like, what do? Sometimes they don't even get treatment at all because they're afraid they can't afford the bill, not knowing that there's programs that'll pay. We
Yeah.
have all of these resources available to us that most of the world doesn't know.
Yeah.
And I would bet that I don't even know how to do the percentage on this, but it's an alarming number of people that don't know their actual rights of just
Yeah.
being a human being in America.
Wow.
It's shocking. So I've been keeping these notes, and so I'm now motivated to write, but I can't like finish writing until I know something. But
Mhm.
that's burning a hole in me. So as a professional, is that a book that's useful?
Yes.
That's exciting.
Absolutely. People get misdiagnosed all the time.
It can cause problems, man.
It causes a lot of problems, and people have no idea what their rights are and what their recourse is.
Recourse is a good word
Yeah.
because there is recourse.
You need to write this book.
Well, I'm going to, and I'm so excited to collect I don't even know why. Well, actually, I know why I kept notes. Kept notes because sometimes I just didn't know what was real and what was.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to is like, so I had to keep notes. Like, okay, was that really real? Did I hear that? Did I see that? Because this whole time, or at least the last, several years, I thought that it was dissociative identity disorder. So I'm like trying to manage it and trying to stay safe. And I am so blessed though. I need to make sure I say this statement. I am so blessed that God brought me the perfect partner to help me, to work with me, to help me feel safe and to navigate, because all of the amazing things that are happening in my life and the blessings that I have come through growth and healing. But that doesn't happen without Jessica, who's been an amazing partner to me and has helped me grow and helped me kind of navigate situations where normally I would destroy and hurt relationships. I told you before, when I got off Facebook, it was my mental health because I was going batshit crazy, like getting triggered by things and seeing things, or getting like I would read something wrong and assume, or if somebody didn't reply to my message, and then all of a sudden it's like internally. And then sometimes what happens internally comes out externally.
Mhm.
That's no way to live.
No, it's not.
And so obviously the most important thing that we can do is take care of our health and mental health, physical health, spiritual health. But anyway, that's why. But I just wonder how many other people go through these things and don't have a clue. Anyway, I don't want, this is not about me, Brian. This is about you. I
Mhm.
want to congratulate you on your radio show, because better than as well as anybody, one, how hard it is just to be able to stay on air and to keep something like that going for that long consistently with guests, and even as a host, being able to keep the brand what it is, grow it, keep it fresh, keep it healthy, keep it moving. It's not stagnant. That is really, really hard to do. And I commend you on that also. Let me ask you this. Is the reason why you've been able to remain consistent and steady and keeping things fresh and keeping it going as long as you have, do you think that that is because of the guest, or do you think it's because it's more about you being prepared?
You know, I will tell you, when you are well prepared and you're not just winging it, people notice that. And I've had people tell me, Jeffrey Gittimer, when he was on my show, he was episode number 100. He said that I am one of the most well-prepared interviewers that he's ever worked with. That's a cool compliment for someone like that. People frequently tell me, I had a blast on your show. That's the exact word they use. That's not a word I ever use in a sentence. So it's pretty interesting. But I think part of it is the guests are amazing. And there will always be somebody new accomplishing something amazing that I want to talk to them about. I'll have some people on more than once. I've had one guest on 7 times. That's how amazing he is. And we always have something new to talk about.
Who's that guest? Can you say?
Brandon Adams.
Oh, Brandon's great.
Brandon is amazing. Love him. He's fantastic. And I've had several other guests on 3 or 4 times. A few people have been on twice. Most people are only on once. Not that I would be opposed, but when somebody has something new to talk about, sure, come back. I don't want to do the same show twice, though. I don't want to talk about all the same things we talked about last time. I just don't want to. It's not interesting. People just go back to the episode I did with you 6 months ago if they want that.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but my first interviews, well, you're different because this is a second. Actually, I may have talked to you 3 times now that I think about it.
I think so.
But I like the casual conversation for the first time around, and if I enjoy it, then I come back for a very specific talk. And in those interviews, I treat them more like 60-minute style specials. Treat them like little mini documentaries. Because I enjoy the conversation, because that's really why I wanted to be a talk show host, was the conversation. But I also get a lot of value, and the audience gets a lot of value out of very focused, this is the target interview. So I've kind of started mixing that up, and I'm having a lot of fun with it this time, because I haven't talked to you in so long as far as on air. Wanted to have another conversation to catch up. But I do want to have you back on to have a future of media and publishing conversation with you, because I'm doing some stuff, and I know I have a good pulse on where we're transitioning to, and I believe that you do too. And I think that we can have a very educational and informative talk on that. So I want to have you back for that. But I want to give you this last few minutes, Brian, because this has just been like I said, a conversation to get to know you again. But I would love it if you could share, one, with the audience, where they can follow you, where they can listen to your radio show, where they can get the magazine, but then also any other, just, whether it's a word of wisdom or anything that you just want to share from your heart. I want to give you the floor to close us out.
Okay, great. Well, if someone wants to talk to me about helping them with their book, my site is writeabookforyou.com.
Say that one more time.
Writeabookforyou.com.
Good website.
Yeah, it is. I was surprised that domain was available.
That's really good.
It's really good. Writeabookforyou.com. If they want to look into my magazine and subscribe, ultimateachieversmagazine.com. And the first 7 days is $1, and whatever subscription choice you made will go through after that. Fantastic. I mean, issue number 65 just came out, and I've done a bunch of special editions for people that just want to use this as a branding tool for themselves. So I've probably done 100 of them now. So, I mean, you could read one a week and still not finish in 2 years. That's how much content is there.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fun. I enjoy it. And if you want to book a call with me, callwithbrian.com.
I like this.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any
last words?
Last words? Well, I posted something this morning. Never miss an opportunity to pet your dog. Very important. You never know how many more times you'll have to do that. But I would say, on a more serious note, I would say be consistent. Don't give up. The pendulum does swing both ways. When things are going badly, they won't be that way forever. And when things are going well, don't take it for granted, because something can derail you. So stay with good people. The sum total of who you are, as has been very famously said, are the 5 people you hang out with and the books that you read. So read, listen to audiobooks. I love audiobooks. And it's just really great. And just consume content that will build you and build your business. In fact, Shark Tank is one of my favorite shows. I'm going to be taping an episode with Matt Higgins very soon. He's been a guest on Shark Tank.
Wow.
And I did interview Kevin Harrington several years ago. He was the first cover of my magazine back in December 2017.
I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, you've had so many. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have to check out his magazine, because he's got, I mean, to me, it should be sitting next to Forbes at the grocery store, because it's just, it's meat and potatoes. In other words, it gives you the meat. There's no fluff,
Right.
not a bunch of junky, trashy ads. It's just premium, solid content that's thoughtfully put together. Brian does an amazing job. His radio show is great. I also know he's on Facebook and LinkedIn. Are you anywhere else?
Instagram.
Instagram. Okay. Well, you guys check him out. Follow him. Brian, so blessed to have you. So great to see you again. And I look forward to having you on again.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.